Mr. Bell is one of the most famous violin players in the world. He has performed as a soloist with many of the world's major orchestras, and he has performed with young musicians too. Before we meet him, let's hear him play a little bit. Here he is playing with some young musicians of the National Youth Orchestra of the United States. Wow, what beautiful music they make together. I bet Josh has a lot to teach us. Would you like to meet him? Let's say hello.
Hello, Josh. I'm so excited to have you here with Harmony at Home for our lesson about the string family of instruments. Hi, Josh.
Hello, how are you? Good to be here.
Fine, thank you. Thank you for being here. So I have with me today two of our students. They are both violin players. Janie from Canarsie in Brooklyn. Hi, Janie. And Aiden from Chinatown. Hi, Aiden. So we were already talking a little today about the string instruments, and my students here have some questions for you about the violin and about your musical experience. But maybe I can ask the first question. Many of the students listening to us today have never played the violin. Can you tell us about the instrument and its different parts, please?
Well, I may be biased because I've been a violinist all my life, but I think the violin is the most, the most like the human voice of any instrument. I think all string instruments are kind of like the human voice, which is why we all love stringed instruments, because you can really sing on a violin. Of course, my pianist friends will argue with me, well, you can sing on the piano and make a beautiful sound, but there's nothing like the sound of a violin. The violin can do anything a voice can, but it has a range that's even much more. Here I have my violin with me here. It goes all the way down to the lowest note of the G string. Sometimes I'm jealous of the cello players because they can go much lower, but we can go all the way up to, I mean, that's a huge range. There's so much you can do with that range, and you can make so many kinds of sounds. So you can make beautiful, rich sounds like. Do you notice how I was sliding between notes? That's like a human voice. You cannot do that on the piano. You can go from one note to the next, but you can't do that. And you can, on the violin, can do with the bow. You can do so many great things with the bow. You can do fast spiccato, or you can do ricochet, which is like bouncing. Sitting down is hard to play, but there's so many tricks and fun things you can do on the violin. So you have a lot of tools to make music with on the violin. And of course, as you violinists know, it has 4 strings. This particular violin we could talk about maybe later, but this is a very special violin made by Stradivarius. It's more than 300 years old, and it's worth millions of dollars, but that's a whole other story.
What a beautiful sound it has. Amazing. Thank you so much for playing for us. Janie, do you have a question for our guest today?
My name is Janie and I am 10 years old. I started to play the violin when I was 7. How old were you when you started to play the violin?
I was actually just about to turn 5 years old. So I was still 4, and my parents gave me a violin. My dad always wished he played the violin, but he started when he was in his 30s or something like that. So he always wished, why didn't I start to play when I was a kid? And so when he finally had a kid, which was me, he said, we're going to start him early because it's so great to have music, from an early age. So that's how I started. I started when I was just 4 years old, and I feel really lucky that my parents started me on the violin.
Aiden, do you want to ask your question, please?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Mr. Bell. My name is Aiden, and I'm also 10 years old. My teacher is named Miss Maria. She helps us play our violin better. I would like to know if you had a favorite teacher and why.
Good question. Having a good teacher and someone that you like as a teacher is really important. Teachers, like, after parents, teachers are the next most important things as far as making you grow up to be a better person, or in this case, a better violinist. By the way, 10 years old, you guys are so lucky. That was my favorite year when I was 10. My 5th grade, are you 4th grade or 5th grade? 5th grade? 5. That was my favorite year. I loved it. I had really 3 major teachers in my life. The first I had when I was 4 years old, and she was a wonderful old lady in my town in Bloomington, Indiana, and she made me really love the violin at first. She was she just was very loving person and loved music. So she got me started, and I really loved that. And I'm very grateful to her. But then after about 4 years, my parents realized that I needed a teacher that would give me a little more structure and tell me how that, because I was doing a lot of bad habits. I was holding the bow a little bit kind of like this instead of like this. And so we went to another teacher named Mimi Zweig. And she's a very well-known teacher now. And she had a very strong method, and how to hold the violin. And she made me do lots of scales and etudes and things. And so I fixed a lot of those problems. And then when I was 12, she said, you need to go to the next level. And so she found the teacher that I went to that became like my grandfather. His name was Joseph Gingold. And he was really, really famous teacher, very old. And he then took me to the next level and prepared me to be a concert violinist. So I had several teachers, and they're very, very special to me. My old teacher, Gingold, he died many, many years ago because he was very old when I was 12. But I still have a picture of him on my wall, and when I practice, and he's looking down at me and smiling at me when I practice. So I'm very grateful to my teachers. Good question.
Good answer. Janie, I think you had a question about playing in front of other people?
How does it feel to play in front of thousands of people? Do you ever get nervous?
Oh God, of course, yeah. Do you get nervous when you play in class for people?
Yeah.
I've never met anybody who said no, actually, to that question, because we all get nervous, and that's a good thing, to a degree. Of course, you don't want to be so nervous that you start playing your piece and you go, So, which is basically the nerves. When you have nerves, it's like, you know what that comes from? It comes from adrenaline, which is in your body already, but your body gives you adrenaline, and which can help you if you're like running away from something. It gives you extra energy, but that extra energy translates into like 10 cups of coffee, So there are ways to combat that, and I do get nervous every time. So there are several ways to help that. One, of course, the number one is just preparing well. I'm most nervous when I don't feel prepared. So if I didn't practice enough, then I'm more nervous. So what can help there is also, if you're going to play in class and or a recital or something, the night before, play for your parents and if you have brothers and sisters, have them sit down on the couch and say, I'm going to play through my piece, and maybe do it a couple of times, because then when you do it the next day in your concert, you know you've done it. You played from beginning to end, because everything is always scarier the first time. Have you ever been on a ride, like a roller coaster or anything like that? What's scarier, the first time you're on it or the second time you're on it?
The first time.
Absolutely. It's always the first time you do something is scary. The first time you jump out of an airplane, well, okay, I've never done that yet. And never will. But I'm sure the first time is really, really much scarier than the second. So it's the same with your piece. And a new piece is always scarier than a piece I've done before. So that's really important. Then you can also for me, another phenomenon, as you might say, what happens when you play a concert and you're nervous. Guess what happens? Does your playing get faster or slower?
Faster.
Yeah, it usually gets faster. So if you're used to doing something, then you suddenly get nervous. You start rushing, right? So it's really good to practice a little bit slow. So everything you do, just practice everything a little bit slower than you normally do, so that you can really master it. And then that way you're comfortable playing slow, because then when you're nervous, you know how to slow yourself down, because your body knows how to play slower as well. So that's really important. So that's sometimes I also take deep breaths before I play. I take really deep breaths, and that just calms me down before I go out on stage. And then there are lots of other things. I think about, why am I nervous? Why am I really nervous? Everybody's on my side. It's just usually, if you're playing in class, you're usually playing for other kids and their parents, and they're all on your side. They all want you to do well. They're not wishing you badly. So I try to think that everybody's on my side and they all wish me well, and that helps me a little bid too.
Wow, so many tips and so many things, interesting things. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, Aiden and Janie, do you have any other questions you would like to ask?
Yeah, I have another question. I try to play every day. How much do you practice?
Oh, well, I try to play every day also. When I was your age, I tried to practice an hour a day. So if you can, obviously the more you practice, the better you're going to get. So nowadays I try to practice anywhere from 2 to 4 hours every day, but it's my job. I don't have school like you do, for 6-7 hours a day. So this is really my job, and I don't have to go to an office like most people go for 8 or 9 hours a day. This is my job, and it's a really lucky job because it's what I love to do, and I make a living from it. So I feel like one of the luckiest people. But I do have to work, and I do try to practice like 2 to 4 hours every day.
Thank you. Janie, do you have one last question that you want to ask?
Yes. Sometimes it's hard to play in tune. Can you give me advice on how to play in tune?
As far as playing in tune, you know what the most important organ of your body is for playing in tune? Can you guess?
Ears?
Your ears.
Ears?
Because playing in tune requires listening and knowing when you're playing out of tune. And that's the most important thing, that if you don't know you're playing out of tune, have you ever tried to sing a song or seen someone try to sing a song when they've got headphones on? Because they can't hear what they're actually singing, and it sounds awful because they don't hear what they're singing. And so, so it's because they're not listening. So when you're playing, you have to be constantly listening for being in tune. So when it's out of tune, it starts vibrating in a funny way. But when it's in tune, everything's like the world is aligned. So you have to keep listening for that. Not quite. There we go.
I want to thank Jenny and Aiden for your great questions. And of course, thank you so much, Josh, for being with us today. We have learned a lot about the violin, and I'm thrilled that my students got the chance to meet you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Janie and Aiden. You guys, I can tell you guys are really smart and really, I'll bet you're really good violinists and good musicians, and you will be even better as you get older, and I can't wait to hear you play someday. So thanks for your great questions. Really, really nice to meet you all.